the key thing that people need to understand about dopamine is about the regulation of dopamine, right? So you can't be high forever. So in the sense that you can't be happy forever, right? So if you had constant dopamine hits, that's not good either because you can't keep that level. And if you get used to such a high level, there's two things here. There's the amount and it's the amount. So the amount of dopamine you have and the amount of effort it takes to get that dopamine. These are the two key things here. So for example, if we talk about, say, drug addiction, right? So the reason why people take massive amounts of, or the reason why they get addicted is because they gain instant access to that high, to that feeling, that euphoria we call it, right? So say it's heroin, cocaine, whatever it might be. Now, the problem is if you start using and you keep using, you obviously start to habituate. And that habituation means that the amount that you need to get the same sort of kick or buzz or high is going to ever increase until a point where it just plateaus. This is actually the best analogy here is like the gym. You start in the gym, you start lifting weights, you start a bench press and you go bang, 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 linear progression, right? And that's fine. But then you get to a point where actually you just start plateauing off and you get what we call diminishing returns, where it takes a lot more to make a little bit of progress. And the same thing will happen with this as well, right? So you'll keep taking these drugs, and you just get to a point where you may not even get that buzz anymore, but then you're so addicted to it, you're so conditioned to doing it that it's not even about the dopamine anymore. It's just I go through the steps. This is what I do. This is what I do. So that's to do with the amount. And then the second part is to do with, like I said, the effort. So now in a world where we live, which is all about instant gratification, the fact that we can get access to a lot of things, not just this, Amazon Prime, viewing content, like before on TV, it used to be like you wait for something to come on once, like The Apprentice. Apprentice is actually a really good example. The Apprentice comes on once a week at a certain time. You wait for it, and then there's a payoff. The payoff is you like and you enjoy watching it. That's the dopamine, but you've worked for it. Rather than say you get The Apprentice and you just binge, 12 things, 12 shows in one go. Same with Deliveroo, same with Uber Eats, same with drugs, same with pornography. All these things, it's about the access. And if there's too much access, what that can mean is if you're doing something in one way, when you then try and carry over into other aspects of life. So for example, if you're getting everything on demand, therefore instant dopamine, and then you go into somewhere where you don't get it, where you need delayed gratification, you can't handle that. So I don't think it's surprising when people are saying how, millennials, millennials is us, isn't it? What's the one after this? Gen Z, Gen X? I don't know what they're called. Gen Z? I think it's Gen Z.
I think it is.
Gen Z. Whatever the one after us is, and probably us as well. Oh, you guys are so fragile. These guys are fragile. They can't cope with anything. And I think this is one of the key things, man. They can't pivot, right? Or people can't pivot. I'm used to having everything now. Why should I wait? And there's no release and there's no dopamine and I have to wait. There's no patience. They can't hack it. And when they can't hack it, that's when the meltdown happens. And the meltdown happens, they can't cope with the situation. There's no kind of, okay, what can I do instead? There's no plan B. It's I'm not doing this, or I'm going to go away, or da-da-da-da-da. And it's just it's that instant kind of reaction. And that's the thing. So dopamine regulation is important. So what's the answer to this then? So I've just made a video about this as well. It's about detoxing, dopamine detox. That's the kind of phrase that people are using. What does that mean from a real perspective? Well, let's take phones, right? So phones are a really good example. I think we've spoken about before about scrolling endlessly, right? Morning, in the night, when you get 5 minutes, you're just doing it and you're getting these little dopamine hits and it keeps you there. And actually the science behind, reels now. So reels on Instagram, on TikTok, the video thing on Facebook, YouTube Shorts. It's harder now to watch a full video on YouTube, even though it's 5 or 10 minutes, but you can easily watch 50 10-second videos on the thing, right? And that can be up to an hour, 2 hours, and you have no problem. You can sit there, just keep doing that. Because they've worked it out now. They're like, we need, go on, question. Go on, marketer.
So this is something that Andrew Schultz has done really well, and he admits this himself. So he doesn't talk about dopamine per se. Similar to what you said about the YouTube length of videos, comedy specials used to be, an hour or so long? And that's a big investment in terms of time.
Right.
So what he was doing was he was releasing little batches of him performing in like 5-10 minute digestible chunks, which means if he did it well and it was edited well and it had the effects on top, like internet comedy kind of style, but equally it was professional on stage. He said, I am the snooze button for when you wake up in the morning and see the alarm. So you keep hitting the snooze button and then you keep going to the next piece of content, the next piece of content, which might eventually elapse the amount of time you would have spent just watching a single comedy special.
Yep.
I just gave you more and more and more of it over time in smaller digestible chunks. And now Reels is just that on a more granular level.
Exactly that. I couldn't put it better myself, Indy. But it's just showing about how our, they say our attention span is decreasing. It's only going to decrease more. And yeah, that's just a dangerous place. So detoxing. So one thing I did, which worked well for me, was to stop myself going on Facebook and Instagram. I removed the icon from my iPhone. So I've still got the apps, but before I could just see it, click on it, see it, click on it. Now I have to physically pull down, type it. And because I don't see it, I tend to push myself to do other things. And this is generally like when I'm having lunch, let's say, or whatever. So now it's like, okay, I'll prep in the morning, which show am I going to watch? Lunchtime comes, straight to the show, not social media. I know a good thing that you do before you go to sleep every night is you read half an hour of a book. Really good. Like forcing yourself
I'm starting to now. That's a New Year thing that I've started doing. I never used to.
Okay.
But I've started doing it now. I haven't done it for the last couple of days, but I do need to get back on it. I like it. And I put my phone in do not disturb sleep mode.
Good.
That
so
way,
it's just out of the way.
Snoozes all my notifications till like about 8 a.m.
Yeah, perfect. That's really good. And another thing, if people want to try it, that's maybe at a lower level, because all we're talking about here is when you're dopamine detoxing, you're having to do things which you are conditioned away from what you normally do. And so if you're going to build that alternative habit, that's hard. That's going to be hard. So we want the lowest barrier to entry. And that's so what you said about Schultz is exactly that. It's like, what is manageable? What can I manage and then build on? So what I used to do was, okay, I didn't have a time for reading. I used to say, I'm going to read 10 pages. That was it. It's really low barrier. But what happens generally, you read 10 pages and you feel like reading a bit more. But I said, look, I need to read a minimum of 10 pages. That was it. And that got me to do it because that doesn't feel like effort. As soon as something feels like effort, you're not going to start engaging in it. Right? And that was it, man. And then the other thing was about when I'm writing scripts for YouTube content, I'm like, before it used to be, okay, I'm going to sit here and I need a whole batch of time to write this content. Now it's like, okay, I wrote a few sentences today, I can write a few sentences tomorrow. And by the end of a few days, actually, the script is done. But the barrier to entry was low. It's just like, okay, whatever time you have, just do whatever you can. Just keep reducing that barrier to entry, guys, and your time will compound and you'll get better at these things. You start enjoying them. Once the habit is made, then you don't need the motivation or discipline. The habit is made. So in the early thing, you just need to do something. Done is better than, thinking or doing nothing. That's the point. So there you go. Dopamine, very natural chemical in our body.
Okay.
Go.
So a good way to start doing a detox would be what? Give me a few examples.
Yeah.
So if I introduce it, what are a few examples to give people a dopamine detox?
So reducing the screen time on your phone. Apple has a good way of monitoring this for you. So aim for 10% per week. You don't need to go to 0. Go to something that's sustainable for you. If you're going to do that, you need to replace it with other things. So you need things to distract you with, whatever that might be. Going for a walk, listening to a podcast, having conversations, or ringing a friend is a good one. So I found a lot of people, what they do is in their Google calendars, they have talk to a friend time, and they'll block out like an hour or half an hour on certain days where they'll speak to a friend. It forces them to speak to a friend. That I found is a really, really good one. And then the final one, like I've just said to you, is commit to reading. Reading is awesome, man. Like audiobooks and everything are fine, but when you read, you the pictures and the neurons fire off in your head in a completely different way. Commit to 10 pages a day, any time of the day. I used to, when I was a junior doctor, F1, F2, I went through a phase where I just wanted to read Harry Potter. So I get to lunchtime, had my Harry Potter with me, Chamber of Secrets, pull it out, read a chapter, go back to work. Loved it.
See, I have a problem now when it comes to audio. I can phase out audio in the background. It can just be noise, and I can do work around it. So I remember I said to you that I used to struggle listening to stuff and absorbing it and working. Now it's become extreme to the point where I listen to it, I don't absorb it, and I'm doing something else, but I'm listening to it, but I'm not listening to
Taking it in. Yeah.
It's just not sticking. It's just like, it's there. It's just noise. And I'm like, no. I need to rewind something, listen to the whole thing again and really take it in.